Hi guys, and welcome to the War Story podcast. Another brilliant guest for you today, but first of all, a little housekeeping from me. As ever, all we ask is if you listen to the podcast, if you find it valuable, if you learn something, if you laugh, if you cry, if you express any emotion at all, please do tell a mate, share the podcast, the only way that we can grow. If you could leave reviews on Apple Podcasts, leave comments on Spotify, all that kind of stuff. Anything that helps push the algorithm and makes me sleep better at night because I know that you care. It's really, really appreciated. Now, today's guest, you might have seen him recently on the internet giving some very positive encouragement and motivation to a bloke with a rifle and a bayonet going through, I say, a day he'd remember for the rest of his life. Our guest is Mr. Ash McGraw. Ash, welcome to the podcast, mate. How you doing?
Good, mate. You? Nice to be here.
Yeah. Well, mate, let's just talk about your recent viral video. Because you were saying that you didn't expect it to blow up. So to set the scene, why don't you tell people what's in the video, and then we can talk about the internet at large's reaction to it.
So obviously, being in the social media world, I think it's heavily content related, isn't it? I mean, everything goes into building content, brainstorming ideas, etc., etc. Now, this was actually, I'd just gone in my archives, and it was one of them days where I was like, right, I just need to get a video out there, get some sort of content out, because I was busy. So I just went into the Army archive. Obviously, that video had to get edited. There's a few things that I couldn't put out there. You know, I probably would have got pulled in by the media if I would have put the full video on there. So I clipped it, chucked it out, and it just went absolutely viral. It was crazy. So obviously, it was a bayonet lane. Basic training, as any infantry knows how that goes down. One from when I was instructing back in Catterick in 2015, somewhere around that time. And, you know, I don't think it was the initial bayonet training. It was bayonet 2. You know, you come off the back of exercise and then you go through the bayonet lane. So obviously the students have been going through the week on exercise, and we tabbed through the night. Ended up back on that range, and then I was just giving that recruit a bit of positive motivation up the bayonet lane.
What was the when something goes viral like that? What did you find was the overwhelming kind of response to it from? Because I guess civvy, when it goes that viral, you're getting it seen by civvies, veterans, a whole host of people.
Now, I think it's what I noticed, because obviously you're always looking at your target audience, and that's sort of who I aim my content at. Now, with this, it was more so veterans, people who've served. That was like predominantly the majority of the people who I noticed who were liking the video, following the page, and interacting, because I think it brings something back to them. It brings back memories, doesn't it? Especially like with the infantry lads straight away, no matter what country they were from. I mean, there was people from all over commenting on it. And I think it's just that relatability and that looking back and thinking, God, they were the good days, you know what I mean? Pretty similar to how a civvy probably looks back at school and says, oh, God, you don't get it like you used to, you don't know how good you've got it. I think that's what we've got with like basic training in the early days of your military career, where you always look back and you think, yeah, that was brilliant. So yeah, it was more so the ex-serving personnel that was on that video. And then obviously you get all the military banter within that, you know, getting called a hat by the power lads and this, that, and the other, as expected. But yeah.
Yeah, it's the strange thing about, I mean, if you could make viral content, we'd all, like, if you could know what it was going to be, we'd all have 100 million follower accounts, right? But it's always, a lot of the time, like you're saying, it's, you know, the work, sometimes I'll put thought in for days on something, I'll put it out, and no response, just absolute crickets. And then other times, might be sat on the toilet for a couple of minutes, quickly come up with something, put it out there, and just, it goes flying. It's, if there is a science to it, then it's not a science that I understand. But, well, except in your case, like I said, I do think you hit on the nail on the head there. For a lot of people, it's that kind of nostalgia and that belonging and thinking, oh, yeah, I was part of it. You're hitting on that special, unique culture that a lot of people have been a part of, right? So on that note then, let's talk about how you gravitated towards the military in the first place? Like, where did you grow up, and what were the first signs that you were infected by the infantry virus?
So the infantry virus. So basically, where I grew up in Stoke-on-Trent. It's not a bad place. I mean, from the outside looking in, probably everyone thinks, "Oh, Stoke, what a shithole." But growing up, it wasn't too bad. Obviously, myself, I had a bit of an unusual upbringing, where my mum had me at a young age of 20. Obviously, I'm being mixed race. She wasn't with my real dad. She had some dramas there from the past, what I've never really delved into with it. And then she sort of left the family home. With me being mixed race, the family weren't really up for that. We're talking in the 90s, it was quite racist back then. And my mum moved out. She basically brought me up on her own, like a hairdresser's what she used to work in. And then she met my stepfather, who was a great bloke. I ended up taking his second name. It's his second name what I've got now. And he brought me up, but he was military, he was Royal Signals. So I think he served like 8 years. And then growing up, obviously you're in his memorabilia. You're taking his old combats out the attic, you're getting down the fields, you're doing what young kids did in the 90s. Obviously, it's not really a thing now. And then as I progressed, obviously, within school, I didn't want to be there just to fuck about all the time, messing around, getting excluded. I stayed in school, but I think the best GCSE I got was the C in expressive arts. So I wasn't everything else.
Say that again, mate. Sorry, I missed that. The best one was what?
The best grade I got in school was a C in expressive arts. So I was a bit of a performer. Everything else was, F's and U's, and I didn't do well at all. But I always had in my head that, when you do like the 2 weeks look at life, sort of work experience in school, I went on to do like the 2 weeks. It was like a military sort of like prep down in Nestcliff. Was it Nestcliff? Yeah, it was at Nestcliff. So you went there for 2 weeks as like a sort of like a school offloading for a work experience. Went down there and I just got absolutely thrashed by the DS who were on it. And they were all Staffordshire regiments. So, I knew a bit about them. But in all honesty, even up till when I joined, I didn't know anything about the army. I didn't know anything about regiments, different battalions, what different people do within the forces. So even when I joined, I just didn't have a clue what I was joining. But obviously I'll get onto that in shortly. But on the route up to that, I then fell into the wrong crowd. I was smoking cannabis. I was going out a lot. I left school. I didn't really know what I was doing. I went to college for like a joinery course. I think that lasted like 2 weeks. I was more interested in going out and just getting off my head, basically. And that was a sort of environment that Stoke-on-Trent brings, unfortunately, and it still does now to this day. So I remember I went back to me home, where obviously my mum, my stepfather was, and my mum had found a load of cannabis onto my bed, and she just laid it out, and she says, "You are a disgrace." And I've got a lot of respect for my mum for what she went through bringing me up. And I just thought, right, something's got to change here. And I went out uptown that night, again, drinking, and I woke up on a friend's sofa the next day, and I thought, I've got to sort my life out. So I went straight to the Army Careers Office, obviously something that's a thing of the past now. And I signed up. Now, originally, when I signed up, I joined the artillery. And then when I went down to do my 2-day selection, I realised what the fuck I'd joined. No offence to the artillery lads, but I just thought, right, where the fighting lads, what? And they were like, right, this is infantry. That's what you want to do. You want to do infantry? And I was like, yes. So I went on to the infantry. And yeah, that's how it started. Obviously, I joined my local regiment, which was the Staffords. And we went from there.
So when you were during those years, then between like the prep, not the prep college, sorry, the look at life, Did you think that you'd go in the army, or was it just a case of just at the time it was just something to go away and do for a couple of weeks? Did you see yourself ending up in his career?
I always said to the teachers I'm going in the army, it's always something I said from an early age. And I think it was just because in my head, I knew I was a failure at everything else within the education sort of circle. And I just thought there's nothing else I can see me doing other than the military. And it was always a fascination from young. Arguably, was that a reflection of my stepfather? Probably was. I mean, if you've got a man there that's ex-military, and you know how it goes, when they leave the military, what do most men talk about when they were in the military? So, he's got his pictures up. When I was in the military, we did this. And we all do it. I do it now. Anyone who's been in the military, the first you get speaking to him for an hour, it'll come up in conversation. So obviously growing up with that, seeing his memorabilia, seeing that was like the thing to do for him, then that probably rubbed off on me. And I thought, you know what, I want a slice of the cake. And then in my head, because he was a bit of a bastard growing up, I thought I'm going to go in and do one better. So I always wanted to sort of like prove to myself, but prove to him, I could do it, especially in that early teen phase where you go through, the drink, you're trying to find yourself, you're drinking, you're partying. And for me, I felt, looking back, I probably felt a bit shameful of who I was becoming. So I needed to make that switch and prove that I could do something with my life.
Yeah. And I think you joined the army in 2007, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, by that point of joining, you've got Iraq's been going on, Afghanistan's been going on.
Yeah.
With knowing about those operations and things, was that something that you wanted to get involved in? Did you want to get out to Afghanistan?
I think, obviously, when we was in high school, the Twin Towers happened. So, that was all over the news. And I think at that point in life, everyone was very much reliant on the news. The news was like, that was facts. Like, there was it's very different this day and age, isn't it, where we've got a lot more access to different news outlets and ways of thinking. But the way of thinking back then was what you were told. So obviously, in my mind, I was like, right, we're getting terrorized by these countries. This is what needs to happen. I need to go and defend my country. I need to, go out there and be there next to the lads who I'm serving with. So in my mind, yes, I did want to get out there. At that point of time in my life, I was thinking, yeah, I'm in. Let's go.
And when you actually, is there anything you want to mention from your training? I guess because you work in a role now that involves instructing and like those kind of leadership roles. So did you begin picking that up when you were in training yourself?
When I was, it took me a very long time to mature as a person in general. And I think even up until like late, probably like 28, 29, looking back, I was quite immature all the way through my career until I got to towards sergeant rank. I started maturing out a bit. I mean, probably after the second heavy, I started to calm down. And I think that was just me as a person growing up. So looking back and thinking, did I pick anything up about leadership and coaching in the early days? I probably didn't go out there looking for it, but I think you would have just picked it up. You would have picked their coaching styles up as you do, as you push through life. You pick up on people's points, you pick up on what you take away the good, and you know what's bad, and you know what good blokes look like, and you know what shit cunts look like. And then as you start progressing, the more of them you meet, it becomes a part of you, don't it? And I'm big on environment, so I always try to push towards the good blokes, sort of mark and avoid the ones that aren't so good. So yeah, I think from the off, it probably did have an effect, yeah.
And how did you find training?
I enjoyed it, and I think I needed it because as a young lad, bit of a gobshite, didn't do well at school, didn't do well with authority. But when you join, when you're coming through them gates and you're looking at all the screws sergeants that are in there, and they've all just returned off tally. And you can see by looking at them, that these boys have literally just got back fresh out the desert, and then that respect's there straight away. So it's not like a teacher where you've got no respect for them. I had instant respect for these men. So like, I had no problem with authority, and I wanted to prove myself that I deserved to be there. And at the time, it was the army slogan was "Be the best," and I believed at that time we were. We was fucking gleaming. I think the instructors were gleaming. Everyone went all out. And obviously, as the army progressed over the years, things changed, along with a lot of things in life. But at that point in time, yeah, I thought it was brilliant, and I did enjoy it.
Yeah, that "Be the best" slogan. I think that's probably imprinted on a lot of us, isn't it? What do you know off the top of your head? What the slogan is now?
It was long in Monty, so I don't know if
I'm not sure. I think they change it every 5 minutes, don't they? But I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, and spend most of my time talking to veterans, serving people and stuff. And I'd say such a great slogan, because it just did exactly what it said on the tin, really, didn't it? And I think that probably, like you're saying, people who were looking for a chance to prove themselves, and probably brought a lot of people in through the gates. When you got to your battalion, then, like you said, they just come off as a battalion. They just come off Telic 9.
Yeah.
So obviously, like a punchy tour for them. What's that like then, coming in as a crowbag into a battalion with a bunch of blokes who've just been scrapping it up for 6 months?
Well, I can remember we come from depot. Obviously, we got to the camp. We was based in Tidworth at the time, next to the Royal Welsh. I think you were Royal Welsh, weren't you, as well? So we were down there. And we went on parade for the first time, and the whole company were outside on parade in deserts, all tanned up. I'm thinking, for fuck's sake. And us three rock up, DPM on, just stood out like a sore thumb. And I'm like, fuck. Got all these blokes, war torn, and I'm thinking, fucking hell, what have I walked into here? And it's a complete different feeling into when you walk in as that Joe Crow. And back then, times were different, shot runs and fucking block jobs, so you're getting a fucking punch, and the walls were plastered in like Page 3 and what was the other magazines used to get?
Nuts and Zoo
everywhere on the block. So yeah, it was rough, but you knew you had to go in there again and prove yourself, prove a point. But it was definitely intimidating. I don't know how that would roll this day and age, and if it's still the same for new recruits going in, I don't know. But back then, yeah, it was very intimidating. But at the same time, he just lit that fire as if like, right, I've got to prove something again. But that gobby Ash McGraw was still gobby Ash McGraw. And I remember we went on a platoon adventure training, and this was within like the first 2 weeks of us being there. And we went on the piss. It was down south somewhere. And I dropped a pint glass in the pub, and one of the Fijians was like, "Oh, you crowbag, pick that fucking pint glass up." And I said, "Fuck off." Oh my God. I've never been hit so hard in my life. It's like I got hit by a train. So yeah, but a lesson learned from that one. And then we moved forward. But looking back, that he's character building in my eyes. And I feel like some people like myself back then, you need a little clip round the ear roll every now and again to bring you back in. But yeah, it was eventful when I first joined, definitely.
So what's your kind of thoughts on county regiments? Because I'm presuming Stoke, that's probably one of the bigger towns in that recruiting area for the Staffords, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you see as like the benefits and the disadvantages for having blokes all kind of drawn from the same area? Oh, well, presumably the Fijians, obviously, maybe a bit different, but generally speaking, having the county regiment system.
So, if I'm honest, I loved it. Especially with the Staffords, because you had a hell of a lot of Stokies. Then you had like the guys from Stafford, Wolverhampton, Birmingham, like sort of West Midlands. But the Stoke lads, all like Fijians, who sort of like stick together, and it's if you know someone from your own town, your own city, then you're pulling them in, you're going out for a drink with them. You could just relate. I mean, and that carried on through my career, you know, when you was out in Cyprus and my missus come with me and become a bloody pad rat. There was still Stokies in, and, you know, you stick together because that's what you know, isn't it? That's where you're from. And I think that was a benefit from the local regiments coming together, because you just got such a relatable background. So, yeah, it was really good on that front. And I'm not sure how it runs these days. I know like we obviously merged into the Mercians and there's people from here, there and everywhere. But when we're talking like the Staffords, there was so many Stoke lads in there. It was ridiculous, but it was brilliant at the same time, because it's sort of a home from home. No matter where you hear that accent and you're like, yes, you're from Stoke, mate. And then you get chatting. And yeah, it was good.
So what was that time like for you in between joining then and going out on your first tour? You got a few years there. I don't think the battalion deployed there for a few years, did it? So what was your kind of thing there? What did you end up doing as a role? Did you get on any courses kind of thing?
So initially, when I got to battalion, we was demo battalion, which was basically down Tidworth on Salisbury Plain, and we was on exercise like 3 weeks out of the 4 every month, you know, Monday to Friday, playing enemy or doing something along them lines. So the soldiering side of things was brilliant, because we was never in camp. We was just out soldiering on the plane. So the soldiering skills everyone was improving week in, week out. You was out all the time. Obviously, you were getting the benefits of, LSA and, you know, your days out of bed and whatnot. And that was it for the first 2 years, you know, and that was quite enjoyable. But then at the same time, everyone was getting itchy feet, because Afghans kicking off, you know, we're in the prime time now, and we're probably the only battalion that's not deploying. So I can remember everyone thinking, you know, when the fuck are we getting out there? And I think it was around 2009 or something like that. We had a big battalion brief. So everyone's like, we're getting ready to go. We're in this massive hall. The CO comes in and said, right, lads, get your stuff packed. We're moving to Germany. And I just remember the whole hall was absolutely fuming. And we got posted out to Bad Fallenbostel for 5 years. Obviously getting out there. Then we started to move into pre-deployment training. You know, we was going out to Canada on Battis. And then we was going down to Otterburn, was it, where we used to do the pre-deployment. And then we obviously built up to Herrick 13/14 in 2011. So it was just all basic soldiering. I think at that point then I completed my junior NCO corps down at Nestcliff, I believe. Got promoted, and then sort of just stuck to the basic soldiering, you know, work. We was armoured infantry at the time, so we did a lot of that. Become like a warrior commander as well, because as a Lance Corporal you can still obviously command from the turret. But there was one thing that really did piss me off about the armoured infantry, is everyone all of a sudden thinks that the blokes start thinking that the tankies, you know, and they start going up the sheds and like turning into more of an armoured role, and forgetting that the light role infantry, whereas I always loved that, the real soldiering, you know, out the back, living out my big, and that was what I was always pulled into. So that was the one thing about armoured that I didn't really like, but at the same time, it had its other benefits, especially when it was fucking freezing. So I can't knock it in them points. But yeah, it was just basically basic soldiering, you know, building up the capability and then working towards Herrick until we moved into pre-deployment.
So when your time for Afghan came round, mate, how were you feeling about going out there? What was your kind of like situation back home at the time? You with missus, and like if so, what was that what was that like on your relationship, knowing that you're about to be apart for 6 months and, you know, and obviously not just apart for 6 months, but, you know, with all the repercussions of what can come from going on a tour?
So when Afghan come, I was 20 years old. I think the missus was only 17. You know, we was very young. She was in uni. I was sort of chasing a career. I was still living at my parents' house. And it was something I wanted to do. I wanted to get out there. Now, I remember at the same time, because pre-deployment training, shit gets real then, doesn't it? You start going through serials where you've got, as a young lad, you know, even seeing an amputee in role play, that was sort of like, fucking hell, he's got no leg. I can remember going around a corner on pre-deployment and thinking, fucking hell, he's got no legs, there's blood all over him. And, you know, you get sort of like that shock to the system, like, right, this is fucking real, this is what we're doing. And on the build-up throughout, I remember there was a lot of lads flapping, a hell of a lot of lads within the company. And it even got to a point where I think it was the weekend before we deployed, there was lads coming back in off leave, slamming the tabs into the sergeant major and saying they'd been on cocaine on the weekend and literally getting kicked out. I think we had about four of them blokes, because they were just flapping it. And these were the lads that were the ones that were, you know, the gobby ones, the odd lads. And all of a sudden, when it come to the crunch, they slammed the tabs in and said they've been on cocaine all weekend. It was crazy. So, you know, the whole build up, the whole pre-deployment, the whole thinking, right, this is it, we're going to go. I was nervous. I was definitely nervous. And again, probably my lack of maturity, I didn't understand it as well as I should have going into it. Now, even to the point where we was in the plane on the way to Bastion. And in my head, I'm thinking, we're getting off the plane in Bastion and going straight into it. That was sort of like how much I've probably not listened as a young lad. Thought, right, we're going into it, I'm ready, not got a clue. But yeah, it was a nervous time, you know, young lad, 20 years old, very immature, but ready. I was ready for it. I was ready for what was coming.
What was the feeling like, your own feeling and generally as a company towards lads who, when it came down to crunch time, you know, found a way of getting out the door?
Well, I just think you look at them and they're just scum on at the end of the day, because it's like you've put in all this training. I've just talked about, you know, my career from 2007 up until 2010, 2011 when we deployed, and everyone's making a noise. Everyone's like, when are we going? And then when it comes to it, people's true colours come out, and then you just think, you know what a shit cunt's like. And then you just crack on. You just look at the people around, look at the people that are willing to go. And then you think, you know what, they're the people I want to be around, because you don't want to take someone with you there who doesn't want to be there anyway, because they just become a liability. And there's enough to take in. There's enough going in through your mind. There's enough to think about when you're over there without thinking if someone's got your back, if you get into a firefight. So, yeah, if anything, looking back, I was probably glad that they didn't come, because it just becomes a liability.
What about what's your role at this time? Are you a Section 2 IC by this point?
2 IC, yeah, at this point, yeah.
So what about throughout the company then? Do you still have like people who have had experience in Iraq and that kind of thing, or is it mostly an inexperienced company?
So, yeah, the majority of the corporals and above were Iraq. So, you know, they're just spinning dits on their experience in Iraq. Obviously, you've got some of the flyers that flew up to corporal who hadn't got any tours under the belt, but were good operators. But yeah, it's predominantly Iraq dits. That's all you'd hear on the build-up. So yeah, you're just sort of going off their judgments. And then you'd have the odd people coming in giving briefs who've been over there. And then, yeah, it's just sort of hearsay up until when we got there, really.
And what was your first impressions of Afghanistan and Bastion?
Well, it's just, you got off that plane, it just fucking stunk, hot, sweaty. But then when I was walking around Bastion, I was like, what the fuck is this? Because it's just so safe, isn't it? I'm like, fucking hell, it's rougher in Stoke than it is here. But yeah, and then you sort of settle into that. You get your roots, and then you're thinking, you know what, this isn't so bad in Bastion until reality hits.
So what was your role like? Because I know when I was out there, it was a couple of tours earlier. There was only the one company of warriors. So is that what you were? Did you have the one company of warriors, or was there a full? Were you using them as a full? Did the whole battalion have them? Like how was that work?
So we had a company. My company were armoured. The other companies were light roll. We just had a company of warriors, and then we were split. Across Harmond, here, there, and everywhere. And then we was operating from PBs. So a little, for anyone that isn't military listening, it's like basically a little mud hut built up of like shit and whatnot. And then we had like some Hesco walls as well that were built up, and then we had like a Super Sandy in the middle, and that was our PB. We had a multiple stay in there, and that was us for like 5 months, and we shared that with the Afghan army as well, so it was eventful. We had, I think there must have been about 15, 20 of them. Then we had our multiple, and we were sort of stuck in there, the usual cooking out of bloody, what were they, like an oil drum, chopped and off, and pissing in the PVC pipe, shitting in the John bags. And then we had cot beds as well after a bit. But yeah, it was rough living, but looking back, it was brilliant at the same time. It's a good experience. And then we had how many warriors did we have? We had 2 warriors actually at the time. And then they went up to, when we come together, it's 4. So obviously our multiple had 2 on that PB, and they just blocked like the main entrance.
So basically the battalions kind of split around the provinces in all kind of ground holding roles, and then you'd get pulled together every now and again for an op. Is that kind of what?
So with B Company, we were sort of spread around. So we had like 4 platoon up in Pulpasai, which was further up the 611. We were sort of located quite close before Gerard Junction was built. We were sort of close there, and then towards the back end of that tour, that's when they started to build out Gerard Junction, which was like the bottom of the 611. And then there was 5 platoon who were, I don't even know where they were miles away. So yeah, we were sort of like operating back to back with 4 platoon, but like the battalion, we never come together. The only time the company come together really was when we was doing operations, which were more or less based around Pulpsar, where 4 platoon are, because that was quite kinetic up there. But the majority of the tour, we was to safeguard that 611, that route.
Did you have a, oh fuck, this is real moment on that first tour?
Yeah, I think within the first week or 2, we was doing a night move, and we drove straight into like a anti-personnel minefield, and we just hear a massive boom underneath the warriors if someone smacked a big sledgehammer on there, and then we realised that fuck, we're in the middle of a minefield, and at that point then, contact ID got called on the net, and I'm like, what the fuck, we've literally been here like a week. And then we have to wait for Brimstone, the Americans, to come bail us out the shit. And then that was like, as a young lad, 20 years old, that happening within the first couple of weeks. And then I'm thinking, fucking hell, here we go.
And when was that kind of move with the warrior, did you use them much there, or because with the IED threat, was it something? Did you prefer being out on foot? Or?
We got hit quite a lot in the IEDs. I mean, the threat was really high with the IEDs with the warriors, especially on the 611, because he kept like planting them underneath the culverts. Every time we went through like the farmers field, the poppy fields, they would hit us on there. We had a time where they hit us with 130 kg IED, which luckily the lads dismounted just before, like a kilometre back. And as Poddy, one of the lads, he drove forward. He drove over it first, and then that set it off, but it's hit the FST vehicle behind. As it's hit the FST vehicle, it's flipped. Bear in mind, the Warrior's 36 ton. The Warrior's flipped on its side. All the tracks are blown off. It's just literally bare belly plate. The driver, Hainsey, he was just completely like purple, complete body, like half his body's numb. You know, the commander and the gunner were good, but the gunner suffered real mental health problems from that. He got Kazirak from there. I don't even know if he recovered, to be fair, because he was FST. I don't really know. I didn't really have any contact with him after the tour, but I know he was suffering bad. And then we got there, and it's just like that explosion, you know, it sent us on our horse, and we was kilometres away. So I think from that point there, it was just like every time you're going out, lads were just on edge, because every time you're in the Warrior, you're just thinking, fucking hell, if this goes off now, we could potentially get hit. And because it happened so many times, the lads knew. Do you know what I mean? So when you sit in that, you could see it in the lad's face, like every time they were in the back. I mean, even the commander of the one that got hit with that 130 kg, the week later, we had to go pick him up from Bastion in the Warriors from where we were. So it's like bloody hour and a half, 2 hour drive, bring him back. And I just remember being in the back of the vehicle with him, and his eyes were just pinpoint. And I'm thinking, this guy's just been hit with one hell of an IED. I don't know how he's sitting in the back, and you could see that he was just like, he wasn't there. He wasn't all there, and we had to bring him back to us. So fair play to him, cracked on. But yeah, that's a realism of it, isn't it? And I think that was the only thing with the Warriors. It was good when there were small arms coming in. You know, we was getting shot at plenty of times, but when you're in the back of a steel cage, it doesn't really matter. But when they start hitting you with IEDs and, you know, with the flipping Warriors upside down, and, you know, even when they hit us once on the high ground in one of the jackals, and the interpreter went flying out about 20 foot in the air. It's just like when you see when you see it face to face and you see an explosion going off, then you realise that, like, you know, probably not ideal.
Do you think the Warriors were fit for purpose for Afghanistan by that point?
Absolutely not. We did. I'll tell you one thing that we did do. We went to a recovery tasking. And at this point, our platoon commander was like, right, we're going on a recovery tasking. It's going to be a quick op. We're going to be out for 6 hours tops. We've just got to go help the, I think it was Marine lads that were up the road. One of their jackals had gone fucking man down. We had the Warriors, so we had the capability to get that out of there. So we've gone up. As we pulled up, this is a massive leaguer of Marine lads. I think their OC was SBS or something. So you can imagine the platoon commanders are like buzzing because their OC there is SBS, and they're getting talking. And then we've had contact from the village that's just down the road. They fired an RPG towards the leaguer. As we're there, we've only got 3 Warriors with us at that point. And their OC asked our platoon commander, bearing in mind it's outside of our AO, right, we're going to jump in with you, we're going to attack this village. My platoon commander at the time, you know, being young, a bit naive, he got a fucking bollocking for this after as well. We jumped in, we ditched all our kit. We chucked, there was literally 10 of us in the back of this Warrior, no kit, and we just crunked up like this. The Marines lads were like, right, ditch all your kit. They ditched ECM. We had no ECM on foot, and I'm thinking, what the fuck are we going into here? And then we've gone full frontal attack onto this village, and the Warriors, the chain guns are firing us in. We dismount. We start moving towards this village. You know, we've gone into a contact down at that point. Their snipers put down a few of the enemy that were contacting us from behind the building. And then as they contacted us, we peeled back towards where the Warriors were, and we've gone into this local's house, so, you know, on the roof as you do. And we're on the roof, and we're still getting contacted. And I've looked behind us, and all fucking 3 Warriors are completely submerged into the ground. So what the Taliban commanders have done is got on the ICOM, and they've flooded the fields with the irrigation water. Clever fuckers. So they flooded the field, and the warriors are all the way up to the turret. The only thing that can move is the turret. I'm thinking, we are in a fucking world of shit here. Bear in mind, the Marine lads, they operate out of Bastion. So they were only flying in to do the op to then leave. We've gone to help them out. You know, I think there was a couple with jackals there, so they might have drove in. We've gone to help them out with the jackal. Got there, got bogged in, all 3 warriors. And then we was there for 4 fucking days. So we was there for 4 days, getting contacted for the whole 4 days. There was Taliban on the high ground, you could see them, and they were just sending them down in waves all day, all night. And all we could open was the back mortar hatches. So we're in the mortar hatch, doing a one-place change on the top of this civvy's roof, and I'm thinking, we are fucked here. There's no way to get the assets out of there. We was literally... They were talking about declining, the warriors leaving him there, the Taliban on the ICOM saying they're going to come and take tanks. And I'm thinking, yeah, we're fucked. The ROC is going absolutely ballistic because we're completely out of RAO on some random op. And they ended up sending some massive REME recovery team out to us, which took like a day. And then when they got there, they pulled us out. We drove off and got bogged in again. So I was like, what the fuck are we doing here with these warriors? They were just weird fit for purpose in that situation. Now on the 611, when we're patrolling the main routes, the main supply routes, which were like connecting Kajaki Dam, Lashkar, Sangin, when you're going up there and you're intercepting the Taliban that are driving up and down, that's fine. But you were still getting hit by the culvert, so it wasn't ideal, but at least you could move the vehicle. Anytime you broke track, especially in them situations, you fucked. And they knew how to play the game. The Taliban were clever, because that was a real, looking back, that was a really clever move because they just opened up the irrigation water and just flooded the whole field.
Yeah, mate, I'm like, I would never heard that kind of thing happening before. I'm thinking, I'm wondering, that Taliban commander, was that just initiative on his part, or is he, I'm just thinking about maybe he's come from Pakistan where he's read all military history and he's learned all these things. It's because, mate, that's clever.
Really clever. And the thing is, because we could see they were clicks away, but you could see him on the high ground, and they were giving us, and they were coming down on the backs. But they were trying to attack us at night, and we got night vision. The lads were getting confirmed kills left, right, and centre because they're just walking at us in the pitch black. And obviously, we've got night capability. But in the day, it was just blatant as well. And in the end, they were calling in fast air to fly at him on the high ground because they were blatantly dickish, but they were coming in at all angles. So whoever that commander was for the Taliban, fair play to him because he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, get him on the podcast. What did you feel like rules of engagement and stuff? I should have asked you this earlier, really. What kind of rules of engagement are you working on at this point? Where we 2011 in Afghanistan?
I think it was just the I can't remember the bloody names of them now. What 429 Alpha was the that was
the more punchy one, yeah.
Yeah, that was the one. That's what got the green light on that situation there where I was just talking about, when we was stuck in them ditches. But other than that, we was just on the standard one. Obviously, you come into contact, I can't remember the name of it. It's been a while.
So essentially, to put it in a nutshell, did you have to kind of be in contact before you could fire? You were,
yeah. We weren't on nothing punchy. It wasn't really like that, unless we was going on a specific off where we knew it was going to be punchy. Our day-to-day wasn't 429 Alpha. Yeah. That was just unless we was going on a certain off.
And what about rules for using fast air and things like that? Was there a lot of restrictions on what you could use fast air on?
No, we had that on call, to be fair. Obviously, the FST lad we had with us, Lloydie, that was on the first tour. He was all over it. So when we needed it, he brought it in.
So, generally speaking, then, on that tour, You know, what bothered you most as an individual? Were you more bothered by small arms, IEDs, or something else? Like what was it that kind of like you was your own personal phobia, if you will?
I'll be honest with you, and I don't know if any other squaddy feels the same, but this is how I felt. The first month, I was flapping. Everything I saw, fucking hell, that looks like there's an IED there. There's a stack of rocks there. I'm stopping every 5 minutes. I think it was like a few weeks in, I shot someone's fucking dog because I thought I was getting attacked. You know, I thought I was going to stand an ID. One of the lads said, "McGraw, stop." So I went point man. I looked up, there's a dog coming at me. I shot the guy's dog. It turns out it was the bloody Billy Jowls' dog who was having a meeting with me boss. And he was like, "The only thing I've got's me dog. And I've just shot his dog." So I was on full high alert. And then after that first month, I stopped giving a fuck. I really stopped caring about, and it's going to sound a bit mad, but you stop caring about your life. I did anyway. You just sort of like, right, we're in it now. It fucking is what it is. What happens, happens. And that was the sort of mindset I went in with. And I was thinking, if we get in it, we get in it. I wasn't really bothered. The one thing I was bothered about was the IED threat, just solely because of like I saw the destruction it did. But at the same time, in my head, I thought, if you get hit, you're fucking dead anyway. So, yeah, I sort of went through the tour with that mindset. And, you know, you couldn't really get in touch with home so much because got minimised. We had one sat phone within the PB. So the noise from home, being a young lad, you know, missus is in uni, going out, you know how that affects you when you're out on operations. Probably the only thing you think about as a young lad. I tried, you know, take your mind off that, but I had no fucking choice because you couldn't ring home because Op Minimise was on all the time on that tour because there's always people getting injured or people unfortunately getting killed. So I was sort of just focused on where I was and just got through it, you know. We sort of looked forward to getting back to PB and training, and then you're out on multiple bloody operations a day. So whether that be a fighting patrol or just a standard routine culvert checks or whatever it was, sort of cracked on. So I wasn't, like I say, it was mainly the ID threat. But at the same time, I will say, some of the places we used to stop and just fucking harbour up. I remember lying there, and you can't say, I'm thinking, this is fucking sketchy. Like, we've got like, one of the lads just walking around like the perimeter or whatever, and I'm thinking, if he's monging it at any point, we're fucked here because we're in the middle of nowhere, and this is their back garden in essence. So if they want to take us, they could take us because we used to operate, you know, in multiples of 10 blokes. It's fuck all, really, is it, on the grand scheme of things?
Well, I mean, you take one casualty, that's four blokes to deal with him. Like, you're down to half a dozen blokes to actually fight. You know, it's nothing.
No, so look, and again, you don't really. Me personally, I didn't really understand it as well as I would have if I went now. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm more situationally aware, I'm more mature, I can read things better. But at a young age, you're sort of a bit naive, aren't you? So I think that probably got me through it.
Did you feel like you were making a difference in the area? Did you feel like you could see for like the work that you were doing? Did you feel like you could see a change?
On that first tour, I actually felt like we was making a change. We was making a difference. You know, you speak to the local people. Some of them were really happy for you to be there. You know, we was changing the air. We was setting up fobs to hand over to the Afghan army. We was doing joint patrols with them. Taliban were being pushed back. And, you know, your sole mission when you were there was to defeat the Taliban. Like, and that's what I felt like we was doing. And we were securing the area. So, yeah, at that time, on that tour, I did feel like we made a difference, yeah.
Anything else you want to say about that tour, mate, before we move on to the next one?
No. Pretty content.
So how was it coming home from that?
Absolute carnage. Absolute carnage. I was fucking in a bad place. I had the last R&R, so I did 6 months, come back for 2 weeks, and then went back over for 2 weeks, and then that was the end of tour. So I literally went the whole tour about all and all. Now, when I come home, I was obviously super fucking hyper vigilant. And I remember me mum and stepdad at the time, they took me to the Stoke game. I mean, we got back to Bastion. I literally hadn't had a shower or fuck all. I'd still got dust on straight on the plane. So I'm still in body armour combat, fresh out the PB, stinking like shit. And we got back home. And then, you jump in the car from Brighton Norton to home, literally had a shower, wash, and went to the Stoke game that evening. And I remember we was in Europe at the time. Like Europa, bloody Cup, whatever it is. And it was the ground was just pumping. People were banging, and I'm just like ducking, dodging. And my mum says, he can't be here, he's not right. And I was like, half time I had to leave. And someone banged the door, I was on the floor. Because you just still like, it was just way too soon. And I remember going home and like a pigeon landed on the fence, and a pigeon like, and I was on the floor again. And then this is where it went a bit Pete Tong. We start going out. Within that 2 weeks R&R, I got arrested 3 times. Fighting. Just completely, just like not ready to come home one bit. And I was going uptown. I think I had a lot of resentment and hate towards people that are out just partying, having a good time. And then I'm thinking of like the lads over there suffering, people fucking getting, killed, blown up and whatever. And I'm fucking sat in these clubs, and he was sending me head. And then the police was pissing me off as well, because I think I got arrested the first time. He said the second time. The third time, I remember the copper behind the desk was like, "Oh, back again, are you?" Like trying to wind me up. And then I'm getting more pissed off. Arguably, looking back, it was my fault, 100%. But I was a young lad, 20 years old. I've been sent over there for 6 months. I've then come back off R&R. You don't really have a decompression to you off R&R. And it's a bit mad looking back, really, that you do a full 6 months and then have the last set of R&R when you've been out there. And yeah, he wasn't the best. He wasn't the best. I think we returned back from tour and then had to go to court. Got put on a 2-year suspended sentence. I got banned from my hometown. Couldn't go any bars, any pubs. No, I literally couldn't go out anywhere. It got to a point where my mum and my stepfather built a bar in the back garden. So when I come home, I could have people around and have a drink. So yeah, it wasn't ideal. But in hindsight, what else would you can expect from a 20-year-old lad that's just come back from Afghan? And I don't think the country was prepared for that at all. And I'd probably say I wasn't, about 100% say I wasn't the only lad that was in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, to go from there's probably there's no quieter place on earth probably than Afghanistan, and there's the back end of beyond in Afghanistan. To go from that to a footy game, it's just like the two ends of the sensory experience, mate. Like I can see how that would be. That would blow your mind a bit. Let's just go off on a tangent a little bit then. Do you reckon there is a way of bringing people off tour and releasing them gently into the wild, so do we speak? Is there a way of doing it, or is it always going to be, no matter what happens, once you've had someone go to war for 6 months, if you put them back in at SIPO at some point, there's going to be a ruckus? Do you reckon there is a way of getting around it? Is it just one of those things that's going to happen?
No. Unless you're going to gate the lads for 6 months and keep them in a refined camp and just train them for 6 months. But it's not going to happen because you need time, don't you? I think time's the biggest healer. And, they can do the decompression camp in Cyprus, but let's be honest, you get there, you get locked in a camp, everyone gets pissed up, fights each other, and then you're going home. So if anything, you're still pissed off. You're still fuming, and it's just like, it just didn't make any sense. I think the whole decompression thing comes from I've read something before. It was I don't know if it is in one of the World Wars where they were coming back on a ship And because the ship took them 6 months, the lads have obviously spoken. The suicide rate was a lot less because the PTSD sort of like faded out because they've had time to decompress. But that's over a long period. Whereas, like, yeah, the lads aren't going to want that, especially after fucking deploying for 6-7 months. Just want to know.
There'll be a fucking mutiny on that ship. I think the other part of that, though, as well, is because I've heard the same thing about the ships, and that makes sense. But I think what that doesn't take into account is the biggest difference is almost all young men of your age at that point would have been coming back from a similar experience. And I think kind of what you're saying is something that a lot of people think is when lads came back from Afghanistan or Iraq or whatever, it's seeing lads your own age who haven't gone away and done it. And I think, like, say, the Second World War generation, you come back, pretty much everyone's been involved. And even if they haven't, their brother has or their sister has, or like that maybe their dad was in the First World War. Like, I think it was more everyone across the board had been involved in those experiences. I think maybe the differences with our generation and probably the Falklands generation, Gulf War generation, Bosnia's, Northern Islands, etc. Sorry if I left any on the list. People don't get upset with me, but it's coming back and being in that minority in it is the real thing. So when you got back there, were you pretty much straight into pre-deployment cycle for the next for your next tour?
Yeah, so we got back. We went back to Germany, and then I think within like a year we were back at it again. Canada, obviously, at this point, a lot of lads left, so there's a big turnover. You know, the lads did that tour and thought, "Fuck that, I'm out. I'm done." I decided to stay in. I want to continue pursuing the career. I went on to do junior Brecon, and got promoted there, and then sort of pushed on towards the second Herrick, which was obviously Herrick 19.
Given that when a lot of battalions had this, you do a tour, you come back, you have leave, you go straight into the next pre-deployment cycle, which a lot of the time involves being away for pretty much months on end.
Yeah.
As part of that, what would your personal preference would be? I'd rather do a year away with some R&R and then have a few years at home before going away again, or go away for 6 months, come back straight into that pre-deployment leave and then do it in 6 month blocks. Right? What would be your personal preference?
I think just how it was, to be fair. I think there's 100 ways to skin it, but at the end of the day, you're an infantry soldier, you've got to go away. It is what it is. You've just got to deal with it. And I think at that time, I was used to it. I was used to being away. I had no real commitments, had no kids, had a missus, that was it. But like, I was content. It was my job. Yeah, and I was fucking pissed off at times. Yeah, you miss home, you miss your missus. When you sat there in a fucking basher and the weather's shit, you're thinking, for fuck's sake, what am I doing here? But at the same time, that was what you signed up for.
So how did you feel going away on the second tour? Was there any difference how you felt going away on the first?
For the second one, I felt a lot more mature. I think at that point then, I proposed to the missus. I think we brought our first property, we was in our first house. I've done juniors. Yeah, I was starting to sort of grow up a little bit as such. Not too much though, because I was still fucking about a lot, but I felt a bit more, and because we was deploying to the same area, I felt a bit more confident and you've done it, haven't you, already once, so you've just got to go back and do it again. But at this point, there was still the death rate was high. And literally, I think it's like a week before we deployed, the lads who we was taking over had just took a massive loss. I think 6 of their lads from the Yorks had got killed on an ID on that 611 on a culvert. 6 lads got killed, so we was taking over them. And then I was like, for fuck's sake, it's still there, it's still in the back of your head, that fucking ID threat again. So, But at the same time, I sort of knew what I was going into. But at this point as well, a lot of the lads had changed around, those new faces in, and we was deploying. I think one of our companies got axed, to be fair, because of the manpower. So we ended up going to another company and sort of forming two big companies, I believe.
I mean, that loss, obviously, it's a different battalion, but, you know, you were saying that you didn't think that the Warriors were fit for purpose in 2011. I can speak from my own experience and say I don't think they were fit for purpose in 2009. We're now at 2013, and like when that incident happens, you know, people might want to fact check the date on that, but I believe that's the case. So there's been 6 years there. Like, when you look at the Second World War, again, as an example, and you look at the technology in 1939 and what blokes had, and then you look at 1945, it's like, you know, if you went up in a fighter that had been used in 1935, if you went up in that in 1941, you got shot down instantly, never mind 1945.
Yeah.
So, like, what's your kind of thoughts on the fact that this same vehicles, kit and equipment were getting rolled out over that kind of period of time?
I think the vehicles itself, they did constantly get improvements. You know, they had the big armor plates underneath, but as well as just getting improvements, the Taliban were improving their ways to attack us, and I think they were moving at a better speed than we were, to be honest, because you only catch up to your last attack, and then they'd reinvent something new. I think they had like a charge that went up in like a V, which obviously that's the one that hit them lads, them 6 lads. And then it sort of pierces a hole underneath the armoured plate, which is like the size of a 50p piece, and then sucks the air through. So all them lads were actually announced missing at first via the news. And they weren't missing, there was just nothing left of them. So obviously that charge, what they've created, then you've got to go back to the drawing board as the guy that's fucking designing these Warriors and think, how the fucking hell do I stop that? So I think it was a constant catch-up of keeping on top of the Taliban's tactics more than our downfall in, you know, improving our kit, which was, that's a fucking hard battle to chase. I think some of the other kit and equipment, like the Jackals, for example, going back to Herrick 14, we did an operation in Pulpasai again. We had the Jackals up top next to the Warriors, and as soon as we come under contact, they're completely open. So we had to like get killed. Corporal Pike, who was 4 Scots attached to us, he got shot from top cover, and he's just completely open. Do you know what I mean? Driving around this Jackal, and then you think to yourself, what the fuck are we doing in like an open top Jackal's driving across open terrain? Like, you're just a sitting target, aren't you? You're asking for it. Even in the Warrior, you know, you got your head above the parapet, but like you can duck down and look through the mirrors. But I think the Jackals, again, it's just like, it's fucking crazy, really. But again, you're at war, so it's what vehicle is right? I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that.
Well, that's kind of going to be my next question, mate. Is like, as an infantry soldier, you just feel better off like, fuck the vehicles, just let me be out on foot.
100%, yeah. Just get dropped off, fucking chopper or whatever, and just get out on foot, because you are like, you are a sitting duck in them vehicles, no matter where you are, especially on that terrain. They're great to get you to where you need to be, to like the fall-off point, that's fine, but then just dismount and go in from there. Because as soon as you start breaking track, that's when all the issues come in. I found every time we broke track or stayed in a place too long where we shouldn't have been, we started taking casualties.
Did you feel then, on that kind of note, that you were always kind of like, did you feel like you had the upper hand out there, or did you feel like it was always a case of they're going to be the ones initiating the ambushes, they're going to be the ones kind of saying when we fight, or did you feel that you had a bit of a say in that as well?
I don't think we ever had the upper hand, purely because they know the terrain better than us. I mean, you had a lot of these compounds, and underneath these compounds, you had these rat tunnels. Did we ever go in them tunnels? Did we fuck? You know, you patrol, you go through the buildings and stuff, you get to one of them tunnels, and you never cleared through one of these tunnels, but you can be damn right sure they were fucking using them. And there was a time, you know, where we was driving down the highway, and one of the lads clocked a few lads near the compound, and they were wearing Afghan army uniform. 2 of them were, and 1 of them was just in civvies. So we broke track, but this was like a route where we kept getting ambushed. So they broke track, gone down to him, and it turned out they were all Taliban, but it was sort of like a standoff we had with him. Then they were saying they were army, then there was like one of them was Taliban, and we managed to nab 1 of them. The other 2 got away. It was like a standoff. They sort of drove off, pointing their weapons at all lads pointing the weapons at them. They drove off. Steve-O jumped off the fucking warrior and just knocked 1 of them out. And he was on the Millie Awards for it. I was like, you lunatic. And it turned out he was a Tier 1 Taliban commander who was there because he knows the ground, knows the area. He's there prepping how they're going to ambush us. Luckily for us, we stumbled across this bloke, got him in the back of the vehicle. They took him to Bastion, the main camp, and all the Yanks were going wild. They'd been after this guy, famous, outrageous, his name was. And he was, we just out of fluke got over, nabbed this bloke who was a Tier 1 Taliban commander. So, but the point is that they know the ground a hell of a lot better than us. So that was like close to where our patrol base was. And they're just popping up here, there, and everywhere. The farmers, you don't know if they're farmers or are they actually Taliban. You don't know who the Taliban are terrorising to make them do something towards us. There was an instance where the other platoon went to check on a PB where there was a load of Afghan National Police who used to do joint patrols with us. And as they've gone there, they were all dead. So they've tried to get comms with them. They couldn't get comms with them. They've gone there and they were all dead. That was the other platoon, full platoon. And one of the Afghan police was actually Taliban. So he's waiting for him to go to sleep and he's killed them all. So there's just loads of like different things going on. You don't really know who the enemy is. You don't know where they're coming from. You don't know what routes the enemy are using to get up towards you. So it's very volatile. It's very, very much is. Sounds a bit cliche, but it is a 360 battle, and you just don't know where it's coming from.
So ever part of you that kind of wishes the shoe was on the other foot, you would get into, use your soldiering skills to be that force that was, kind of a lot less rules. And
that would be really, like, that would be proper soldiering, but, I wouldn't like being in their position either. So I don't play, you know what, though, if you look at the whole, like, war situation, as you get older, you start questioning, don't you? You start questioning, like, why was we there? What was the actual reasoning? Who's controlling the globe? And you go down that hole. I do a lot anyway. And then I start thinking of, like, what the fuck what have all them men gone there for? What have the Slavs for? What the people got killed for? Wasted time over there, especially how it ended. And then I think of them, the Afghanis, like, what would you do in their situation? Because you'd do the exact fucking same, wouldn't you? You'd do the exact same.
Yeah, I that's kind of, I think I always think it's like, playing enemy on exercise is always like quite kind of a lot of fun in it, because you just got no rules and you could just go use your own initiative and go off and do your own little things. But then on the other hand, I'd hate to be on the end of an A10 run. So, swings and roundabouts, right? So your second tour then, like, were you doing more, it was more ground holding stuff again, was it?
No, the second tour was really quiet compared to the first one. I mean, we didn't hardly leave the FOB. At that point then, Dry Junction was built up pretty well. So, we're talking like that had a good, like, I'd say probably about 12 Super Sangers. So it was big at this point now. It was in a big base. Like, that's come from like being a tiny little PB to full-on FOB. But that being said, at that point then, it was all about handing over the job to the Afghan army. And then we was basically the last infantry on that side of the front line. So we was pulling back. We're handing over these camps bit by bit, slowly pulling back. So the suicide vehicle-borne IED threat was through the fucking roof. And we got hit quite a few times with that. On the front gate, there was an instance where we was going to do I don't know why they said this, but we was going to do a 24-hour relief in place for the Afghan army so they could get a resupply, which I was like, when the fuck have you seen these cunts get a resupply? I've never seen the Afghan army get a resupply. So yeah, we was there. We went out on an op. And again, in the Warriors, sat there for 2 days like sitting ducks whilst these do their fucking resupply, so they say. And then as we've gone towards their camp to go in, the CO went into, the OC, sorry, went in to speak to their commander. And it was all a bit sketchy, you know, their blokes who were in the Sangha sort of ducking and stuff. And then we got fucking hit with a vehicle-borne IED straight in the middle of the company. We took 6 casualties. Sergeant Major got killed, Ian Fisher. Fucking there and then. Quinlan's got his lungs cut. The rest of them got like shrapnel wounds. And that was a fucking terrible day. I mean, this bloke was a sergeant major. Didn't have long left in the army. He had like 2 years left in the military, something like that. And it wasn't, I think it was like, we had like a month left on tour. But like, we was constantly getting hit by suicide vehicle-borne IEDs. One went off on the front gate where the Yanks were outside. And then as we're pulling back, handing back these, you know, these fobs that we've spent, not only our battalion, different battalions, you know, I spoke about the Yorks lads earlier, the Royal Welsh lads, everyone else that had been there over that period of time, building up these fobs, securing this location, handing them over to the Afghan army, for us then to pull out. And as we're pulling out, you can see them just fucking it off, just not arsed. And
the Afghan army, no.
Yeah, and there was a point where we was getting shot at in the back of the Warrior, and our OC was on the net, and he was like, we can't fire back. Basically, they wanted to say that we'd left. He'd come up from high that we've left Afghan peacefully, like, there's no rounds being fired. I'm like, there's fucking rounds hitting the fucking Warrior, you wanker. And then I was getting wound up, so, you know, he jumped out the back. I'm firing UGLs off at potential fucking firing points. We had the lad jump on the top of the snap, try and locate this enemy position. And it was just getting to the point where I was thinking, that tour then I was thinking, this is a load of bollocks. I'm not making any difference here. This is just a fucking show for the media, the mainstream media. Because why aren't we allowed to fucking fire back? Why aren't we going and engaging the enemy? Why are we just fucking pulling back? Hand it over to the Afghan army for them to just fucking basically just fuck off. Do you know what I mean? And then we're pulling back. And obviously, looking at it from their perspective, the Afghan army lads, they're probably thinking, fucking hell, we're fucked now. Because they're leaving us on our own. And, well, you know yourself, they can't do without us. And a lot of them were corrupt anyway. So, yeah, it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best way to end probably the way I think about Afghan completely changed on that tour as we pulled out. And again, that big loss towards the end. You know, you're coming back, you're seeing people's fucking families who's got kids and a wife at home, and then you start thinking like, fucking hell, what is this? You start questioning things, and you start getting wound up, and then he starts pissing you off. And, you know, I had a fallout with me commanding officer, my officer in command, my OC. We didn't get on well, let's just say that. You know, so that tour didn't end well either. But yeah, hindsight. It's as if you don't want to say what you want to say, because I don't want to disrespect like the lads who've been there, served, people who've got injured, people who've been killed, families out there. But at the same time, in me, that burning thing inside me is like, why the fuck were we there? Like, what the fuck was going on? There's a lot of questions that haven't been answered, and that's what sort of sits in the back of my mind even to this day. And I don't think anyone's ever really going to get the answers from that.
So was that in Afghan on the second tour then, and having those questions, was that what led you to deciding to kind of wrap up a career in the army?
No, because I pushed on from there. I mean, I did in another 9 years. No, probably another 10 years after that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so I pushed on, yeah.
So, what were you still serving when the Afghan pullout happened? As in, like the final one, the Kabul.
Yeah, so what happened? We returned from that tour. At the back end of that tour, we got told that the Stafford's Freemason were disbanding. And then you had a choice to go armoured infantry 1 Mercian or light roll 2 Mercian. Obviously, me always wanting to go light roll. I picked light roll. So I flew back to the UK and joined 2 Mercian in Chester. As soon as I got there, we're deploying on tour. I was like, you have got to be fucking joking me. And this was a peacekeeping tour in the Turkish Republic, Cypriot border. So we flew out there on a UN peacekeeping tour for 6 months. So the missus was fucking ecstatic. And the Herrig 19 tour was actually 9 months. I come back on the 8th month. I'll come back a bit earlier because whilst I was over there, I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. I was shitting blood like 20 times a day. So I thought they were going to kick me out the army because in a bad way, my colon was giving in. But I think it was down to environment and just eating shit over there. So just after we got hit by the IED, about a couple of months after that, no, it was about a month after that, sorry, I come back. And then I got moved straight to 2 Mercian, went there, did the tour, peacekeeping tour, which was like fucking Butlins, Jesus Christ. We got over there, it was like we was in a place called Ledra Palace. We had a swimming pool, we had a room, we had a curfew of midnight, so it was basically just a piss-up tour. A lot of the lads just went on the piss. It was good for training. Complete difference. Operation, obviously, it's blueberries, but everyone was still in that mindset of like Afghan. So our OC was trying to get us fucking weapons to go on patrol in this buffer zone, and like I remember the main brigade commander like, "What are you on about, you lunatic? You're on a peacekeeping tour." And then he soon realised that we was there to do fuck all, basically patrol around this buffer zone with other UN forces. I remember being in like a chopper with an Argentine bloody pilot, and I was like sort of co-pilot. Not I wanted obviously a pilot, but you were on there just patrolling the buffer zone in this little chopper. And there's a guy who's from the Falklands, Argentine Army, not Falklands, sorry, his Argentine Army's got Falklands badge on his helmet, and I'm sat next to her. I was like, this is fucking awkward. So yeah, that was 6 months of mincing, and then I returned from there and I went to RTC as a section commander to instruct, which is where the social media video comes from. And then I spent about 2.5 years there. That was brilliant. I loved that. That was really good because then you realise how much you've learned over that period and how much, you actually are a decent soldier, because sometimes when you're over there, the soldiering's different. You don't really understand how much you know until you put it into practice, until you're tested, until people are sat in a corner of a room watching you deliver lessons, watching how you instruct. And then that's when, I fell in love with instructing, coaching, the leadership side, everything. That improved massively by going there for that 2.5 year period. So that was really good.
How much before you actually, I just want to hit the Afghan pullout and then let's go on to the instructor. So when the Afghan pullout happened, then because I just want to hit this now as it's something you were kind of just mentioning. But how did you feel when the Afghan pullout happened then, and then the Kabul extraction, op hitting, everything's all over the news?
Well, watching that was just absolutely like, it was heartbreaking in a way because I was like, that was when I was really questioning, like, what the fuck have we just spent the last 20 years doing? And then in my head, I'm thinking of all the people that died, Private Ballingham, who got killed on the first tour. He was a Stoke lad. Fisher, you got your part McGraw, all the other lads, you can sit there and name them off. And all the lads that sustained injuries, what are life-changing. And you start thinking about all them people that this affected. And then you're watching it all unfold on the news. The Taliban just stood there face to face with the para-lads. I'm thinking, what am I watching here? People clinging off the planes, fucking planes just extra. We're basically running out of the country with a tail in between our legs. That's what it looked like live on the news. And I was just like, what an absolute shit show. At that point then, you know, you got like my wife watching this at the same time, and, you know, my mum and what thinking, and you can see they're getting fuming. They're pissed off about it. So, you know, I dread to think what the families of these lads have gone through watching that. That was more so in the back of my mind. And then you start questioning again, what were we there for? What was the fucking point in it? What was the real reasoning, you know, behind everything? Because I believe that this day and age, I think we're living in a big script. Everything's just a big fucking script. And as I've matured, I'm starting to realise that that's how we're moving forward. And I think that was a part of the script, how and why we did what we did and we went there. We'll never know, I suppose, but I just don't think it was for the reasons that we thought it was.
So let's go on this instructor journey then, mate. So before you go to Catterick as an instructor, do you go and receive training yourself as an instructor, or is it just that you're trusted at that point to be able to deliver it because of what you've done in the past, the courses you've been on, etc.?
Yeah, so it sort of goes off like your reporting period for the year. The OC at the time was like, right, I think, you know, you're at the top of the section commanders. I think you're ready to go down to, you know, RTC and be an instructor and push on. And obviously, that being on your resume as you progress throughout your career is always a big green tick in the box, alongside, you know, your courses, your juniors, your seniors, or whatever else you go on to. And that just always appealed to me. Even as a crow bag, being there myself, you always think, bloody hell, I'd love to come back here as an instructor and deliver it. And at that point then, you know, you've got tools under your belt, you've got ample amounts of courses, you've got experience. You've learned how to lead through experience, through working with good blokes. You know how not to lead by working with cunts. And then you sort of get there and you know exactly what your leadership style is going to be like. And I think if you're a good section commander, people know who the good section commanders are. People know who the shit ones are. So when I got there, you know, I knew I could deliver, and I knew my capabilities from battalion, you know, the feedback you get from the lads there and the feedback you get from your hierarchy. So, yeah, I was ready for it. And, yeah, I got to there. And you jump straight in at the deep end. You get put in a platoon. You have a few weeks to prep your office, prep your lessons. And then I think for the first couple of months, you're getting people coming in, watching your lessons and stuff, making sure that you're hitting all the relevant points, make sure you're doing nothing wild. And then you sort of get left to your own devices once they're content.
What would you say your own leadership style or style of instructing is?
My only style of instructing. So I'm big on, obviously I took that motto into my business as well. Now just lead from the front. And I think if you're not willing to do it, then you shouldn't be asking anyone else to do it. So I was big, even with the recruits. If they're crawling through a river, I'm crawling through it first. If they're patrolling through the night, I'll be at the front patrolling with them. I'll carry the fucking kit just as much as they do. And I think they've got to see that. I think if you're expecting anyone to do that, even with the business I'm doing now, you've got to be the one at the front doing the same thing, because it's all right sitting at the sidelines saying, do this, do that. Oh, you could have done this better. You could have done that better. But if you're literally, that's all you're doing, sitting on the fucking sidelines, and you're not in a position really to start telling other people what to do. And I think that stuck with me after that. That stuck with me throughout my life, especially with the coaching side of things, what I'm doing now, because I believe that if I'm telling people to step outside the comfort zone, if I'm telling people to get structured, get disciplined, get in routine, then you've got to be fucking doing it yourself. Otherwise, you just look like a hypocrite. So that's always sort of the mindset I've had with my leadership style.
And when it came up to your time ending in the military, Did you have a plan for what you wanted to transition into and doing in civilian life?
So obviously I come back from RTC, and then at that point, I sort of fell into property development. So I had my own house, and we saw another property that was absolutely gleaming like a dream home. We thought, yeah, that's nice. And we got our house valued, and I think it made like 60k over like the year and a half that we was there. And I was like, bloody hell, it's worth that. So we put it up for sale, and it sold the next day. Because, it was big on the miss, obviously, interior design. I was quite hands-on. I did a few courses, basic courses like your plumbing, electrics, got stuck in, flooring and whatnot. And then we saw another house that was sort of on a golf course, top of a golf course, open bloody views all the way up to the Peak District. And it was on for 380 grand, sorry, it was on for. And the guy had a golf buggy in his garage. And he goes, jump on here, mate. He was an old bloke. He was a piss can, just on the wine. It was like 10 a.m. And he took me on this golf buggy down this trail. And I was thinking, I'm not sat here looking at this house with a bloke taking me down a fucking golf club on a golf buggy. I said, this ain't happening. And I was just like, what is going on? He took me back. And I said, listen, mate, we got 280 grand. And he says, I'll tell you what, mate, thanks for your service, this, that, and the other. Shoot me hands, then we'll do it to 280.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, so we fucking dropped on big time. When we got in the house, we was just having our first kid. He said, you can keep the buggy and everything else in the shed. So I've got my own golf buggy now. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So we settled in there, and it was absolutely gleaming, got my golf buggy. I'm driving up and down to the fucking golf club, having a couple of pints. Me and the missus sat there. We just had a new kid. Boom, the army rings. Right, you're moving to fucking Cyprus for 3 years. I was like, for fuck's sake, what am I doing here? Luckily, my missus was working full-time at that point. She was like a manager at Enterprise Car Rental. But it was a fucking job that was taking up a lot of time. And I just said, blagging, you're going back. Because we're moving to Cyprus, I'm taking you with me, fuck it. So we ended up putting our property onto a short-term holiday let. I knew fuck all about this. One of my friends was like, put it as a holiday home, it'll do well. And I was like, who the fuck wants to come on holiday in Stoke? But because it's next to the Peak District, you've got Alton Towers and stuff. So we did it, and it fucking did really well. It started to do really well. It was making me more than what my military wage was. And then we moved out to Cyprus. Obviously, you get double pay out there. The house that we were living in over there was €30 a month. On Barking Hill. I mean, it wasn't the best of houses, but it was a house. We was renting ours out. My missus got a job out there. And it was gleaming. COVID hit. But it didn't really affect us. Yes, the business sort of shut down, but they implemented like the business support stuff with the property back at home. So we had that. And we had the wages there covering it from in Cyprus. And then you're on camp. So it was sort of like people around for barbecues. Everyone sort of fucked it off unless you're going out of camp, and then it was what it was. But we got through that period. And at the same time, I sort of got planning permission on the land next to the property to build an annex. My thought process was to move in the annex and carry on doing the rental with the house. And then when we got it revalued, it got revalued at like 750,000. So I was like, what the fuck? So what we did is we just pulled money out of that, moved back to the UK, and then we had a bit of a luck again because the house that we first moved in, next door come up for sale for 165. I'm talking numbers, so I'm not bothered. I'll talk the numbers. It come up for 165. I rang her up. I said, we want to move back to the UK. I've seen your house up for sale. We've got that 100 grand. She said, I'll give it you for 110. I think the respect's there from a lot of cities, for the military side of things. So she gave us that, and we moved in for 110. We did it up. A year later, we sold it for 220. So we moved again, but we wanted to be back up the area where the other house was. So we brought a plot of land, and then this was where I fucked up because we brought this plot of land. I got planning permission to build this big house. And at this point then, we just moved back from Cyprus. I'd done like a tour of Kuwait, We come back from there. I went to Kenya. No, before I went to Kenya, I did senior Brecon, sorry. Then I went to Kenya. Then in the back of my head, I'm thinking, right, I've come back from Kenya. My eldest lad didn't really want to come to me. He was a bit standoffish. And I thought, right, am I doing the right thing here? Because I'm away a hell of a lot. I'm constantly deployed. My eldest don't want to come to me. I grew up without my real father. So that's in my head, I'm thinking, you know, am I being a good? And this isn't knocking anyone that's still in who's a father, because you can only piss with the dick you've got. For me, I was lucky because I was making money off the property side of things. So I had an option to get out. So I got out. Well, actually, I signed off. The CEO went fucking mental because we deployed out in Kenya. And out of the 9 platoon sergeants that deployed on the ground, there was only 2 of us that fucking finished the exercise because everyone wrapped the tits in for being hot or blagging COVID. So, you know, I finished high on the board. Obviously, my first reporting period, I finished second on the board. So he was like priming me up for Sandhurst. And then I was like, I'm signing off soon. And he was like, you've got to be fucking joking me. So I was like, what you can do is give me a job in Stoke for a year and I'll sign back on that old chest. And he got me one as well. He got me a job running the fucking TA centre down the road. And I was like, I got there and I thought, you cunts aren't having any at my time because they are absolutely dog shit. I'll say that open. They're all MTA centres need closing as of tomorrow. But no, they were good in ways, but like the day-to-day business of that must be costing the army a shitload of money. I mean, what they do when they go on like the 2 weeks out on camp and what, that's great, but day-to-day, I just don't see the point in it. So I'm obviously then at that point concentrating on myself. I'm thinking the army's had enough of me now. I need to build this house. But I flapped it on the first plans. So what I did was try to refurb the existing bungalow that was there. This had no fucking insulation or anything. I must have wasted 30 grand trying to make this house right. I said, this ain't going to work. We was in there in winter. We had a log burner on. There was no gas. I was like, fuck it. It's like living in back in Afghanistan. So I said, I fucked up here. We've got to cut some losses. We got new plans again. So at this point, I'm like 40 grand down. And then we've got the new plans. I've jumped into this new build. I've done extensions, I've done refurbs, new build house, complete different ball game. I didn't know anything about pricing per square metre. I'm just thinking, yeah, that'll cost about that, that'll cost about that. Fuck me, was I wrong? I undershot it by like 80 grand. So at this point now, I'm borrowing money off people or borrowers because I can't get a mortgage on the property until a house has been signed off. Now, I can't get it signed off until I finish the works. So I begged, borrowing, stealing. We managed to get it done. It caused a lot of fucking aggro with family and whatnot, but we got it done. And everyone got paid off. We got the mortgage on it. We settled. The 2-year absolute stress I put my family through won't happen again. You know, lesson learned. And now we sort of settled in. We settled in after that. That was me. I left the military. And that was tough. That was tough. From that point, that was when I went through it.
Go on, man. Like, what was the hard part about it, or the hard parts, I should say?
So I watched one of your posts yesterday, and you hit the nail on the head. Leaving the military is like grief, and I thought that is bang on because when I left, obviously I had the house I was building. That brought its stresses financially and whatnot. But at the same time, I'm like, in my head, I'm still a fucking infantry, still a soldier. So what do? I sign up to a fucking full Ironman as I'm building a fucking house. So I'm getting up at R4, I'm training for an Ironman. I'm fucking getting on site at 8 o'clock, building the house, going back home, training again. Bear in mind, my missus is in a rented property, what we've rented whilst doing the house up, with a newborn baby. I've left the military. I'm training for an Ironman. She's not fucking seeing me. My head's all over the shop. I'm getting to the weekends. I'm boozing. I'm going on a 4-hour bike ride, coming back in, having fucking 8 pints of Guinness. And I'm like, and I was doing that for about a year, mate. And obviously I did the Ironman, got through it. I don't know how the fuck I finished that Ironman, but I finished it. Because he wasn't, there was no nutrition plan. There was no fucking like...
Well, you got 8 pints of Guinness sounds like a nutrition plan.
Honestly, it wasn't normal. I don't know how I got through it, but like, and then my nan passed away. But I think the problem wasn't the property, Ironman, arguably even my nan passing away. I think the problem was leaving the military. It fucked me. I even tried to go, because I thought, what am I doing here now? Obviously, I built this house. We make a good earner off the other one. But I said, I still need to have a job. Still need to do something. I went to work on site with one of my friends, and this big 20-stone bloke turned around to me and said, "Youth, just pick that bag of cement up for us and chuck it on that digger." As he sat there on this digger, and I thought, absolutely not. I thought, I'm fucking going. I'm not having this. I can't fucking work here, because it was just full of like people who just wrecking balls, live for the weekend and just sat there smoking fags, dead overweight. And I thought, I've got no respect for you. Come back down to that respect thing in the military I could take, because I've got respect for the people who are saying it. When I've got some big fucking dosser telling me pick up a bag of cement, I was like, can't happen. So I left, started doing flooring, what I used to do before the military when I was really young. I used to labour for like my mate's granddad. Started doing that for a bit, and then I realised, I'm fucking struggling now. I'm missing the army. I don't feel like I'm anyone. I've gone from being a platoon sergeant, people looking up to, looking after men, driving, always looking forward to the next stop or the next exercise, next course, to fuck all, to go and fit someone's floor and what. And then I just had a real sit down and said, I need to do something here. It's going to incorporate what I actually enjoy doing, which is leading people, which is helping people out and coaching, fitness. And I had two friends that were one of them was getting married. And they said, can we train with you? Can we train with you 6 months? So I started training him. And, alongside that, I've already got my call, used my enhanced learning credits to get me fucking fitness calls, your level 2 and 3 and whatnot. Did that in the background. And I was training them, and I got them in fucking brilliant shape, like absolutely phenomenal. But it wasn't that. They were just completely changed as a person. And they were like, "Mate, I can't thank you enough for what you've done for me," and this, that, and the other. And that, I was like, fucking hell. That hit something there. And I thought, you know what? I could do something with this. So that's where I started Battleborn. And then I was training at a gym down the road with an ex-Stafford's lad who's been running this CrossFit gym 15 years, Joel. And I was like, Joel, any chance I could like use your white space and start putting on my own classes? And then I did that. I invested in building out an app. Everything I was making was going back into the business. And then from there, it's been about 14 months now. It's just fucking took off. It's gone really well. But it's like, I see a lot of coaches and the PT, especially the local ones, there's no real like community spirit there behind them. There's no real for me, it's a personal thing. Like, I'm on my phone constantly, like checking up on clients, have weekly reviews with them. I'm always getting in touch, and I'm always setting them goals, mid-term, short-term, long-term. I'm really invested in them as a person, and you can see off the content how the people feel off the back end of it when I get them to where they need to be. And that, I have people, ringing me up, crying, people sending me all sorts, presents, gifts, voice notes, and just like, so I know that I'm doing something that's actually changing people's lives. So it's giving me back that purpose. And I'm sort of looked at again as that platoon sergeant. Do you know what I mean? So I'm sort of imitating the role I was in, but in something I enjoy. So I pull out the best bits from the army, the good fitness sessions, not the shit ones. the good fizz, the days out, the sort of like let's say the AT where I'll take them out and we'll do a day out with, the clients, and I'll bring in like awards and stuff, and I just make it I'm trying to imitate the military, but just pull out the good bits. And I think it's working really well. And I'm getting that purpose. I'm getting a reason to wake up again. And I've sort of found my way. And I really don't think a lot of people who are serving realises how much that hits you when you get out. Because I've always been a strong-minded person where I thought, yeah, I'm going to get out, I'll do property, I'll be fucking sound. But it wasn't ever about the money. When I realised when I had the money, it wasn't about the money. People say, oh, I'll get out, I'm going to make 100k a year, Sam. I say, mate, you go out and make 100k a year, it's not the money. The army was never about the money. It was about the purpose. And I've realised that more now than ever, that you can have as much money in the bank as you want, but if you've not got something to wake up to that you actually enjoy and something that keeps you fulfilled, the money's going to do nothing for you. And that's what I found with this. So yeah, it's going really well, and I'm enjoying it. And another good thing with I don't know if you've seen, I've run like a battle PT. Obviously, I've called it battle PT every like quarter. So what I've started to do now, that event's like, it's on its third event for the next one. But I pull in ex-military lads to come in down and DS for the day. And even some lads just come in and be an actual bod on the lane. And I've had quite a few who've been struggling. I've had one of the lads' parents reach out to me and say, he's struggling. This is a lad I served with, an Afghan. And I told him, come along. And they come down on that day. And there were endorphins all through the roof. Like, they leave, everyone's got a smile on their face, having a cuppa after, they're getting the pictures. And I mean, for a good fucking week after that, people are on such a high. And I'm like, that's what squaddies are missing. That bit of community spirit, something that they think, fucking hell, I enjoyed that. Took me back to the good old days. But it's just that little dabble into it. And I'm like, so if I keep putting them on, I might put them on every 2 months going forward. But like every quarter it's been so far, and they absolutely love it. And the civvies love it because they're getting a taste of like real fucking military lads coming down, good operators, good lads. And I think it's doing the world of good for all parties. So yeah, it's going well.
When you came back from Afghan the first time, and you were fighting with civvies because you didn't feel like, what the fuck are they doing here, going out partying, we're Afghan and stuff. Do you think now, having, had, sweating and crying, beasting with each other, do you feel like that has helped bridge that gap between, this idea that there's civvies and there's veterans, where the reality is, it's all fucking human beings? So was that kind of bridge the gap for you, and then helped you with that transition in that sense? Yeah,
definitely. But I think I was young then as well. So I do look back and I cringe at some of the stuff I did when I was younger. As we all do, probably some more than others, but drinking was a problem for me when I was a younger, in my 20s. I was fucking hand grenade on the piss. So that had an effect on that. And then now, with the whole social media sort of route, I think the understanding's there more. So I do post military stuff. I try to steer away because I do think that I don't want to be on there spinning dits about the military. I do drop a few things in there, but I sort of cringe at it myself because I know a lot of other army lads, they'd be like, oh, here we fucking go, dits. But with the thing is with army lads, we've done things that are absolutely fucking insane, but they always get downplayed. You'll downplay, oh yeah, Buckshee that was. I'm like, looking back, mate, that was not fucking Buckshee. Like, you put yourself through the ringer living in holes. But lads will always say, oh yeah, that was Buckshee, that was sound. And they don't actually understand the level that they're at with like the mindset and the way they can push through things and push through adversity. And that's one thing that the British Army as a whole do very well. You just do things, crack on with it and get through it without actually looking at it. But whereas if I show that video I put up the other day, I've had loads of civvies saying, what the fuck? Is that what you do? Like, absolutely gobsmacked. I'm like, well, what the fuck do you think you did? But for us, that's the normal. There'll be squaddies looking at it like, oh yeah, fuck off, McGraw, fucking hell, it's only a bayonet lane. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I think there's a lot more understanding there now.
What's the biggest difference between training a group of civilians and a group of military folks? Like, do you have to be different in the way that you approach it, or like?
I think it's easier.
The civvies.
You know why? Because in the military, how many of your fucking lads, say between 30, how many of them are moaning that they've got to go on this? 90%. I can't be fucking awesome this year. This is wank. But like the civvies, they're paid to be there. They want to be there. Like say civvies pay thousands, they literally pay to be there because they want to do it. So there's no whinging. They actually want to be there. So that's the difference. But the mad thing is now, I have a lot of ex-army lads who train, come down the gym, or even do like the camps with me and stuff. And when they were serving, they were fucking out of shape. They fucking hated this. Now they've come out fucking fist gods.
What's been the biggest surprise to you, or the biggest thing that you've learned, once you've gone into battle war? Like what's come out, something that's come out that's really surprised you?
One thing that's really surprised me is I think it's how much respect people have actually got for you as an ex-serving personnel, because you look at the demographic, you look at the stories, and you think there's no respect there, no one gives a fuck, when actually they do, and they do think of you very highly. I've got clients who speak of me like I'm like, fucking Jesus Christ, mate, I'm only an infantry, like I'm just your average bloke, but they see you as something completely different, and that respect's there 100%. And that surprised me, to be fair. And I think I get that from all my clients. Otherwise, they wouldn't be my clients, I suppose. So, yeah, getting that respect there. And then you realise that, you are marketable being yourself. It all comes down to personal branding. And I think what sells Battleborn and what sells me is just me being me. And that's something that at first I was like, fucking, I'm going to put these videos out, you're going to get ripped and whatnot, especially by the squaddies. And I'm thinking, for fuck's sake. And you do get hounded initially, but then you take it on the chin, you crack on, and then you think, you know what, fair play, see, you've gone forward. And then the civvies start understanding it then, and then the respect's there, and then they come on board. So that was a big shocker, to be honest, because at first I was thinking, is anyone going to get on board, do civvies want this? And I was fucking pleasantly surprised. Found out they do love crawling around fields.
It turns out all those instructors, when they said they'd pay thousands for it, it was not bullshit. No. I mean, it's difficult to put yourself out there though, isn't it? Like that, because like the whole thing is, it's never something that stands you in good stead to stick your head up and be that different in the army, is it? Because you will get cut down.
Yeah.
So I think it goes against, and it goes against being British as well. I think as well. It's like it's in America, mate. People have never bat an eyelid twice about that kind of sticking your hand up and going, I'm going to do something a bit different, or I'm qualified to teach you this, even if you are way overqualified. People still have that thing, the tall poppy syndrome, whatever. But like you said, once you do it, people are looking for leaders, aren't they? People are looking for tribes, they're looking for leaders, and if you can offer those things, people flock to it.
But this is a big downfall for veterans as well, I think, because when someone, we look at the suicide rate and people go on about veterans being homeless and this, that, and the other, but as soon as they see a veteran do something different, something outside the box, something that you think, fucking hell, they're doing well, they're quick to jump on the back and play him down or give them a hard time and think, rather than supporting. And like the more veterans that actually support each other, there's more avenues and to bring people in together rather than slaying each other off. And I think that was a big problem. Whilst you're serving as well, you've always got the blokes, who are, oh, he's a fucking cock, or he's a dick, I won't do anything with him, this, that, and the other. You get that whilst you're serving. But like post-military, I feel like you see a lot of these lads who are trying to do something. Just get out and fucking support them. Because I feel like that's something that's missing. For sure.
Mate, the floor is yours if there's anything else you'd like to say.
No, pretty content, mate. Been good chat. Enjoyed it.
We'll keep the rabbit holes for another one then, mate.
Yeah,
we'll keep that for our DMs, mate. But mate, I've got one more question to ask you to wrap up. But before I do that, I just want to thank you for your time today and what you're doing as well. I think it's awesome. Like I said, I think it's need more blokes coming out, taking on leadership roles in Civvy Street. I always say like this idea that civvies don't get us, so there's no place for us. So you just got to make your own place, stick your hand up.
100%.
Tell people you will lead and people follow, and building those communities and building that purpose, mate. So hats off to you. Thank you. So yeah, final question, mate. Would you do it all again?
I fucking would, in a heartbeat. I'll do it differently. If I was to do it again, I'd be going into it with a bit of a mature mindset. And, you know, I'm not going to say I would go in with a different regiment because I don't want to give anyone fuel for the fire. But I would try things slightly differently. But no, I'm content.